So I just finished watching MatPat's theory about the Wakey trailer for Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared Season 2, and I had to make a video of it, even though I'm terrified of the sound of my own voice and have literally never made a video before. The thing that compelled me to do this crazy thing is that I think Matt is dead on with his predictions, but he also missed something really important. I'll be putting a link to his video in the description both because it inspired this video and because I'm borrowing the screenshot he took at the 8-minute mark. My video editing skills are currently non-existent, so I hope he doesn't mind that I screenshotted a single frame from his video. Anyway, I won't spoil too much of his video because I think it's one of his best theories and that you should watch it, but I will touch on a couple of his points throughout my analysis. To summarize, Matt's basic theory is that Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared Season 2 is about politics, namely the 2016 election where Americans elected Donald Trump. As you can see, in this frame, yellow guy seems to be wearing a voting badge with the number 38 on it. I tried doing a Google search for 38 and voting, thinking that the number might be important, and the second result was a link to the website 538. If you're not aware, 538 is a statistical forecasting website, and in the 2016 election, they predicted only a 28.6% chance of Trump winning the election. Now, after the election, there was a lot of skepticism about polling and whether or not it was an actual science. But before the election, people essentially wore poll numbers as literal badges of honor. News sites were constantly reporting that Hillary Clinton was ahead in all the polls, and people were always saying that this was an indication that there was no way that Donald Trump could win. It was really enlightening to see the reactions of political comedians like Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers, because they actually partially attributed Trump's win to the political divisiveness in this country. Once I looked online, and particularly on Reddit, and once I actually started listening to the other side, I found a general consensus among Trump voters. Essentially, a lot of them felt that they were denied the right to speak simply because they had opinions. A lot of them even felt oppressed. When I asked my own dad about how he could have possibly voted for Trump, he said that the way I felt about Trump winning this election was the exact same way he had felt under Obama's 8 years in office. I feel it's also important to note that Reddit, notably an extremely popular site for young people, is extremely polarizing when it comes to politics, which I feel is a clear result of Reddit's upvote and downvote system. Our politics is clearly left-leaning, with the vast majority of the posts before the election mostly being about Hillary's poll numbers, or enthusiasm about Bernie Sanders, or outrage over Trump's latest statements and scandals. And our politics remains very left-leaning, still reporting on Donald Trump's scandals. On the other hand, our the Donald and our shit politics are clearly going to be biased toward Donald Trump. I frequently saw people in our politics agree that our Donald was basically cancer, and a lot of people, including myself, were able to rake in easy karma or fake internet points merely for stating polarized opinions. On a personal basis, I was really polarized about this election. I checked our politics on a regular basis, and sometimes I refreshed the front page every 5 minutes or so as if I were some sort of severe crack addict. I enjoyed the spectacle and the fanfare, and I justified my addiction to myself as being informed. I tuned in to nearly every one of Colbert and Meyers' videos, and I used the drama of the election to fundamentally entertain myself. And I did benefit in some small way from the drama myself in the form of 87 fake internet points from Reddit. User UNovaRunner posted a link about how the FBI director had said that he hadn't changed his conclusions about Hillary Clinton based on his review. A user made a now deleted comment essentially about Hillary was going to win, but I expressed doubt, saying, "Unfortunately, because of this nonsense, I'm not so sure that she'll win. Damage has definitely been done here. Right now, I'll just be satisfied if she wins. She's got to, right? Please? Please don't let it be too much to ask for a sane person to be president." All of the replies to my comment were very sure that Clinton would win, and when I commented that the 538 map had the chances of Trump winning at about 30%, and that my probability professor at the time had said that they were the best statistical predictors out there, that comment only got 2 upvotes, and one of them was probably mine. When Trump won, I actually went into a tailspin. I'm pretty ashamed to admit it, but at the time I had to seek out medical help. I've since learned that I have an anxiety disorder, which I didn't know about at the time, and my brain catastrophized the situation so badly that I basically had to go have a 24-hour timeout at a receiving center. I talked to several mental health staff members while I was there, as well as a psychiatrist, and they said I wasn't even close to the only one freaking out. A lot of the staff members didn't seem so sure of themselves either. It almost seemed like in trying to comfort me, they were trying to convince themselves that the situation wasn't so bad. My motivation for telling you about all this isn't to brag about my fake internet points. It's because I wanted to give you some idea of what the election was like, both for me and for people on both sides. So to go back to "Don't hug me, I'm scared" in light of all this information, the 38 symbol on Yellow Guy's badge seems to me to clearly represent the fake certainty among Clinton's supporters that she would definitely win. But Yellow Guy appears to be wearing a voting badge, and by only showing part of the number, perhaps the show's indicating that, like me, he wasn't entirely convinced. And this raises an important question. Did Yellow Guy vote? According to an article by the broadcasting service KQED, which I'll link in the description, about half of eligible voters between 18 and 29 voted. But the general turnout rate for the election was 58%, a full 8 percentage points higher. In this context, the fact that Yellow Guy is wearing a voting badge and simultaneously representing false conviction with the 38 symbol isn't a contradiction, because voters themselves were contradictory. The fact is that young people were uncertain, and according to the numbers, they were basically 50-50 on whether or not they actually voted. MatPat theorizes in his video that the duck is hooked to a sort of political machine, and states that Yellow Guy appears to be in the frame and there appears to be a plug connected to the political machine that Yellow Guy is able to access. This would synchronize completely with the themes of Season 1, where Red Guy ultimately unplugs the machine that controls that world. Additionally, in the frame, Yellow Guy appears to be sporting a pink mohawk, and I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a lot of mature adults sporting that look. So Yellow Guy appears to be in an adolescent phase, which is supported by the way he behaved in Season 1, like a naive child who didn't even know that his father was watching inappropriate material. He was clearly the most childlike of the characters. He chased after butterflies, he was relatively impressionable, and respective to the other characters, he seemed to demonstrate little awareness of what was going on. In my mind, if Season 1 represented Yellow Guy's childhood and the impressionability of children, then it seems logical that Season 2 could represent Yellow Guy in adolescence. Symbolically, this could indicate that the younger generation in America is finding themselves in a sort of state of adolescence, just like an awkward in-between state where teenagers are trying to find themselves and sometimes rebel. Similarly, the youth of America today might be trying to figure out what they want, and they seem to be demonstrating an increased desire to overthrow the traditions of the past. However, they might feel that they don't have enough experience or education, and that their parents are right about the state of the world, and this creates uncertainty. They wonder, are their parents right? Should gay people not be allowed to marry? Are abortions fundamentally wrong? Do immigrants threaten the safety of our country? And perhaps most fundamentally, should our actions be guided by a belief in God? I don't think that low voter turnout was necessarily because young people are lazy. I think a lot of it could be due to the fact that millennials, such as myself, are constantly being told that we don't know any better. And if we were better educated, we would go with the traditional schools of thought. My dad ended up telling me that I wasn't alive when all of the Clinton stuff was going on, and I didn't know how bad it was. I mean, I was alive, but I was too little for it. So a lot of us are actually berated for trying to go against God and to have the audacity to think that somehow we know better than God. And I think there's a catch-22 here. Because the kinds of people who think critically about how to genuinely improve society might be the kinds of people who would say something like, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not the right one to make this call. Maybe I should leave this decision to people who know better than me, who are educated, who have been around longer. I think the point the showrunners will try to convey in season 2 is that young voters don't have to feel the need to be silenced, and that in the end, they're the ones who are going to be controlling the next generation of the future as older people inevitably die off. Yellow Guy's decision of whether or not to unplug the Duck's machine is a representation of the very issue that America's youth face today. If you stick with the metaphor, you can make the argument that if young people don't fight for what they believe in, the political machine will stay plugged in and the status quo will remain the same. Ultimately, we have to choose whether to trust our instincts or unplug the machine, or whether to remain with old traditions and potentially run the risk of politics remaining the way they are. Now, this is a highly personal decision, and I wouldn't dare to tell other people what to think about it. But I will say that if you're not happy with the current political system, you might consider examining why, and listen to both sides of the conversation. Now, this isn't me saying you should be wow. This isn't me saying you should be a Republican or a Democrat. This is me saying that you should do research, that you should actually listen to people, and that you have a duty to examine the reasoning behind issues and not just read headlines. What I'm saying is that the best way forward is to make educated decisions and to act based on your conscience and your convictions, regardless of what other people might think. Just like in school, you can't just cheat off of other people's ideas and expect good results to come out of it. If young people are uncertain, I think they should know that at some level, everyone is uncertain. No one can predict the future, or the afterlife, for that matter, at least not reliably, and not all the time, and adults definitely make mistakes too, which includes voting mistakes. In the end, you have to choose to live your life the best you can. And if you don't, you might someday realize that you spent your life letting other people tell you how to live, and that you let society shove you in a box. Regardless of what's in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared Season 2, this message is still important. Don't let other people tell you how to live. Decide for yourself. If you agree with what the right has to say, great. But don't just follow the herd because people are telling you that you don't know anything. Because if you educate yourself, you will by definition know something. And that's a lot better than just blindly following the crowd or isolating yourself in an echo chamber with people who think just like you. In the end, educating yourself and voting with your conscience or engaging in political activism might be about the only things you can really do. And this can make us feel helpless. And you might not feel like you have a voice. But in the end, in this divisive political climate, taking the time to simply examine the issues in an unbiased way, I would argue, makes you just as qualified to vote and to represent yourself and to get out there as anyone else. So, boo-boo, I just realized that I missed something that maybe is important. The very title of the trailer, Wakey, Wakey, I think is kind of vital because in the context of everything I said, it's kind of a indication to wake up, you know, trying to wake up the youth. You know, anyway, the fact that I'm just sort of tacking this on at the end without any sort of editing lets you know the mad skills I have. Anyway, this has been awkward. Casey out.